Well, how did we go from this to this? There's a few mistakes along the way, but I got there in the end. Stick around to find out how we did it. It's by no means a tutorial, it's me showing progress as I progress along the wiring process, featuring a flickering incinerator. The deliveries have arrived. So, we've got lights to fit. I'm on my own because Alan's in Brazil and I've got wiring to do. Let's give it a shot, eh? We've got a flickering incinerator to do. This is from Bunter's Yard and this is the tall version sat on bricks. There we go. So that's sat on bricks. Pre-wired, thankfully, and as mentioned, it's flickering. His incinerator is going to sit roughly towards the corner, around there. Drop a super glue to the underneath and we should be laughing. I should probably also say that I have actually tested this. This runs on 9 to 12 volts, so I just very quickly tried it with a 9-volt battery. All working. Anything like this, just make sure you test it, especially before you apply any glue. I've just switched the room lights off temporarily. Just going to connect it to a 9-volt battery quickly just to show you the effect. Hopefully my hands are not in the way. And there we go. Lovely job. Okay, so you're going to have to bear with me with the wiring. As you know, it's not my expertise. So the plan is, I'm using a 12-volt transformer. We're going to come into a regulator. The regulator is going to split off into the terminal block, and that's hopefully going to power the lights. The idea of this is it drops the voltage, so the in voltage is 12 volts, and we can adjust the voltage coming out down to 3 volts or whatever your lights require. Right, so there's been a slight change of plan because I forgot something that we installed quite a few weeks, possibly months ago. Who remembers these? So these pass through. This one will be on board 3, which doesn't exist yet but will do. It'll pass through the side and connect up to board 2. Red and black is track power. Blue and white we did for accessories. So we're going to utilise this so we can pass it from board 1. But this does mean I'm going to have to get board 1 out and wire this into board 1 as well, because board 1 currently doesn't have this wiring loom, I guess. Well, it's been a while since this board's been out, isn't it? Let's get it out. And then we can check some wiring underneath and see if we need to add a loom or not. So for anyone who's recently discovered my channel, this is where it all started. This was board 1. Needs doing. Now, excuse the wiring on this one. This was my first attempt at sort of everything. So I might have made a mistake. I think what I maybe should have done is fit the regulator to this board, and the power would come in from the transformer to the regulator, from the regulator to the terminal block, and then passed out down the boards. My mistake. Let's fix that error. I've got the out blue and white, blue positive and white is negative going into the terminal block. So when we put both boards together, plug this in, this should then feed power down into board 2. But what we're going to do temporarily is get some power to this and just test the lights. Which, I mean, I've already tested the lights, but what I mean is test that it's going from board 1 to board 2. So we'll hook these up temporary on board 2, just make sure everything's working. Right, so I've just brought the 2 layouts onto the landing where I can put both boards together, because obviously it doesn't fit on my desk. And I'm just going to plug it in and test to see if what I've done works, which is passing power from board 1 to board 2. And would you look at that? So we're on dodgy camera angles, I know. Board 2, board 1. And it's a simple case, unplugging it, passing it back through. And that's how we're passing power for accessories from board 1 to board 2. So whilst I just wait for the hot glue gun to warm up, all I've done is these two wires here, the red and the black, they're from the incinerator, and then where are they? I've lost them now. These two wires here, the red and the black, the thinner ones, they're from the second light. And what I've done is I've twisted the two reds together from the incinerator and the light, and again with the two blacks I've just twisted them together. And we're going to use a connector block, simply because, especially these smaller wires, I don't feel comfortable trying to solder another wire to it when it's so small to extend the wires. So I thought my safest route is to use a connector block. And then of course we've gone back to blue and white because that's lights and accessories colour, and that'll just come through to the original one here. And again, that gets power from this to the loom to board 1. So we're getting there slowly. I'm sorry it's not really been a step-by-step watching me process sort of thing, but as I'm sure you're all aware by now, as I keep saying it, electronics and things I'm not overly comfortable with. And I take my hat off to Alan because he's very patient with me. When he is here helping me do wiring, he's explaining everything to me. So I am picking it up slowly, learning it along the way as we go. We'll get there. But what I've done so far has worked, which for me is quite the step forward. Because we've just added another light and the incinerator. So every time we add something, I'm going to keep testing, and I can backtrack if there's any errors. Lovely. So we've got lights. We've also got a working, flickering incinerator. I said at the beginning that we were going to have 4 lights. We've already fit 2. One there and one just down here. I don't think we're going to need this one, so we're going to fit that one, switch all the lights off, make it as dark as possible and see what it looks like. But I feel like I may add one just up here somewhere, or even possibly on this side. Let's get that third and final one fit, and then we'll figure out from there. They're not glued in yet, by the way. I'll glue them in once I'm completely happy with how it's going. I'm hoping we're alright, because there's actually a bit of an inset here where the scrap is. So we've got the scrap pile, and then the pile comes in a bit and then back out. So I think it's quite ideal really to have a light fitting just there. Like I say, I had already checked underneath to make sure it was clear. Okay, so as I was saying, these two are coming from the light. Now, the best way to do it is to just come straight into these two, because as we know, blue and white is only used for accessories like lighting. Simple. Right, we've got yet another dodgy camera angle, and this hopefully is the last test, because I'm hoping we've got 4 yard lights and a flickering incinerator. So let's plug it in. Ready? Would you look at that? Four yard lights and a flickering incinerator. So now the lighting's complete, that brings us on to his next step, and that's adding detail. Firstly, we've got various sizes of springs. As you can see, there's various different sizes, and we've also got cogs, spokes, that sort of thing, again in various sizes. These are going to be scattered around in spots where the eye is drawn to automatically. So let's get the tweezers out and a bit of glue. Right, so I think it's time we had some of those details I've just shown you, but I definitely think I need a new pair of tweezers. So that's on the shopping list. To glue it down, we're just going to be using some matte Mod Podge. So it's matte, so it's going to dry clear. Definitely need some new tweezers. If you can hear my boy in the background, that's Jackson crying. I think somebody may be getting poorly because he's been like this all day, unfortunately. Right, well, I gave up trying to record me fitting all this small fine detail because all that was happening was my hands was constantly sat in front of the camera, so I sort of gave up with it, so I apologise about that. But for this episode I think we're done. I'm going to look for some other fine detail parts that we can use. The lighting is complete, all we have to do is light up the side cabin. Massive shout out and thank you to everyone who's watching. There'll be a live stream shortly because I've got I think a 25 to weather for my uncle. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.